headquarters of Snap Inc. is in Santa Monica, and the police there said that Snap Inc. doesn't return their phone calls, and they won't help with even a murder of a child who got the drug on their platform. They were, in fact, we found out later, um, letting drug dealers know when law enforcement was inquiring about their profile. They felt their obligation to their user was their primary responsibility, not to society or to the other user who had been harmed.
Welcome to the Healthy Screen Habits Podcast. I'm Hillary Wilkinson. Whether you're starting your parenting journey with a newborn or looking to connect with your teen on technology, let's learn some new healthy screen habits together. Today's episode talks about the use of drugs and unintentional overdose. If you have small children or is someone who is sensitive to this topic, you may want to consider listening at a different time or using AirPods. These are really important conversations that deserve intention and time when you want to address them with your family. In the spring of 2021, Sam Chapman and his wife, relationship therapist and author Dr. Laura Berman, made the incredibly courageous decision to open their hearts and share the murder of their son, Sammy. Sammy Chapman was 16 when he died by fentanyl poisoning via Snapchat with a counterfeit drug. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today, and welcome to Healthy Screen Habits, Sam Chapman.
Thank you for having me.
Sam, I have learned so much from the tireless work that your family has done with exposing the dangers and the negligence of Snapchat through your media coverage, as well as the nonprofit that you established, Parent Collective Incorporated. And you do this all to educate and support others. I firmly believe that education saves lives, and really thank you for all that you do. I wish we were not having this conversation today. That being said, I think it's important to remember who was lost. And are you up for sharing a little bit about your son, Sammy?
Sure. Sammy was 16 when he died. He was a high school student, football player, a big bruiser of a boy, loving, intelligent. Uh, his plan was to become the world's first trillionaire. Um, he was mining Bitcoin in his closet. Uh, he started out not in the closet, if you will, and our electricity bill went way up, and we figured out what was going on, and so he moved it into the closet. He ran a biosphere in his bedroom. Um, After he passed, cleaning that sucker out was a terrible task, and he was much loved.
Yeah, yeah. I like that you talk about all of his science background and his tech background because he's not somebody that was unfamiliar with science or technology. And so I think it's important. This is to just illustrate to families that this is not happening to kids who don't have a baseline understanding of what's out there, or a basic understanding of science, I should say.
Quite the
Yeah.
opposite. They are the
Yeah.
digital natives, and we are the ones
Right.
who are ignorant usually. And that's part of the problem. And the other part of the problem is the design of the platforms and how some of them are meant so that parents cannot parent online.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you and your wife have been so open with sharing your story about the night of Sammy's death. Are you up for briefly talking about it?
Sure. It was Super Bowl Sunday, and it was during lockdown and during the pandemic. And so we thought that the one thing that was good about the pandemic was that we were sure our children were safe. in the safest place in the world, which was our home. But we did not understand the perils of Snapchat. We thought all we had to worry about was nudie pics, and we did speak to our children about that. But drug dealer reached out to our son through the quick ad feature, which allows them to network among the friends, if you will, of your children and your children's friends on Snapchat. And that's how they find the kids is they get one kid to establish a link, and then if that kid has their quick ad feature turned on, they're able to network throughout the kids' friends and their school. And that's what happened to us. They offered Sammy something for free. At the bottom, it said, Mr. Dan 248, I deliver. And a lethal dose of fentanyl was delivered to our house like a pizza after we were asleep. He didn't have to leave the front yard to get the dose that killed him, and it was in a counterfeit drug. So he was not intentionally taking fentanyl, and that is how most of the deaths happened. The cartels are using pill molds for drugs that people will buy online to get high, like Percocet, and they are also forming them into any drugs there's a shortage of in the United States. So expensive cancer drugs are being infused with fentanyl and Adderall, for instance, because there's been a big Adderall shortage. So if you get these things online, it's very likely that there's going to be fentanyl in them. The DEA says 60% of the pills sold online have fentanyl. So he gets this counterfeit dose, takes it, he dies, and our youngest son finds him dead on the floor with vomit coming out of his mouth. This is what happens. It's called the fentanyl death pose, or at least that's what I call it. Fentanyl reduces respiration to the point where they pass out and throw up, and they either die from not breathing or they aspirate the vomit and that blocks their throat and they die choking. And so I tried to resuscitate him while my wife called 911. We did not succeed. The firemen and the EMTs showed up and they worked on him for 45 minutes and did not succeed. And then the police came and the coroners came. And so we told the police, let's call Snapchat and Snap Inc. and find out what's in this profile and get this dealer. This was in Santa Monica, California, by the way. The headquarters of Snap Inc. is in Santa Monica, and the police there said that Snap Inc. doesn't return their phone calls and they won't help with even a murder of a child who got the drug on their platform. They were, in fact, we found out later, um, letting drug dealers know when law enforcement was inquiring about their profile. They felt their obligation to their user was their primary responsibility, not to society or to the other user who had been harmed. That's sort of part of a later story where I did get to speak to the CEO of Snap Inc. and ask Evan Spiegel, there's such a thing as third party safety software, which will give a parent a warning.
Right.
Companies like Bark or Bright Canary. And if that had been integrated into Snapchat, Sammy would still be alive. And he said he would not do that because they protect their data and they use their data for targeted advertising. That's how they make their money. It allows them to tell an advertiser exactly who they're advertising to. And so they waste less money with a scattershot ad and they can target, a Barbie to a girl or a soldier to a boy or whatever gender script you want to make up as a product advertiser. So that wound up becoming important because our conversation proved that he knew kids were
Yes,
dying on his platform.
without a
And
doubt.
did not change behavior. So we were contacted by friends who said, let's sue these people. We're part of a lawsuit. We're going to sue. We said, there's a lot of responsibility to go around. We're not people who sue. And we think it generates a lot of anguish for the people who are suing. And we've got enough anguish that we're dealing with. But then the social media victims law firm decided that that phone call and the subsequent emails were important evidence and that
Mm,
we were going to be called as witnesses.
mm,
So we decided to join the suit. If we're going to be called into court and discuss it anyway and have the anguish, we might as well also be part of the suit. I, by trade, am also a publicist, and every step that we've taken, I have used as a reason to go on radio or television or podcasts like yours and warn other parents. And
hmm.
so we were able to get a lot of publicity for our lawsuit. 65 parents from around the country who all lost children to Snapchat, to fentanyl poisoning via Snapchat, and in California Superior Court. And Snapchat tried to dismiss the case, and Judge Riff said that we need trial just to see what Snapchat is. I don't know under law if it's a product, if it's a service, if it's a online social media platform. I don't even know where to classify it. We have to hear on that. We took a product liability approach so that we wouldn't fly in the face of free speech.
Okay.
A defective product, a failure to warn, um, negligence in addicting our children to the platform, and any harm that came from that, and eight other allegations that all survived the motion to dismiss, giving us the broadest palette of discovery anyone's ever had against a major social media platform.
Hmm.
They asked the judge for permission to appeal it to a higher authority because of First Amendment issues. And usually that's not allowed because the appeals court likes a complete record before they take a case. So they make them go all the way to the end. But because First Amendment is such a strong principle in American jurisprudence, the judge allowed the appeal. And we have been sitting and waiting for 8 months now for the appeals court to do something while children are dying.
Bye. Yes. Yes.
So that's, uh, we've decided to do something about this, and we're trying to get third party safety software put on all platforms with children. We have a law that we tried to put through in California and Illinois, and in Congress. And
Okay. And I
it's
want to talk more about that law, but first we have to take a little break. Did you know anyone in a U.S. state, territory, or tribe who needs suicide or mental health related crisis support, or who has a loved one in crisis, can connect with a trained counselor by calling or texting 988. 988 is the easy to remember number that reaches what is commonly referred to as the Lifeline, a network of more than 200 state and local call centers funded by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Formerly known as the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the full name has changed to the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. 988. It's the 911 for mental health. I'm speaking with Sam Chapman, dad of two and CEO of Parent Collective Incorporated, a California nonprofit organization operating in the areas of social media harm, fentanyl poisoning education, and activism. You also provide grief support for those left behind. I have heard you say in other interviews that if fentanyl is the bullet that is killing our teens, social media is the gun. And can you expand upon why social media, A, is this critical piece? And before the break, you started to get into the type of legislation you're working so hard to pass to protect others, like Sammy's Law that you guys have been working so hard on.
Right. So fentanyl takes a journey. It starts in China with the precursor chemicals. The Chinese government is actually paying the chemical companies to produce this. And as terrible as this sounds, they're also sending over the fake pill molds to the cartels in Mexico to counterfeit drugs. And the cartels are taking the precursor chemicals and creating fake drugs. They are liquefying it and putting it into gas tanks and driving it across the border. They are compacting it into powder and flying it in drones across the border, putting it on container ships and bringing it into our ports in containers as big as a house with hundreds of them. So it's too much of trouble to search them. They're putting them in migrants' pockets and body cavities and making them carry them across the border as the price for migration. And then social media kicks in, and Facebook is being used to get drivers to pick the migrants up at the border and take them to the drug labs or to the dealers' homes and repackage these things into consumable drugs in the right size packages for dealing. And then social media kicks in again and solves the last mile problem for the drug dealers, delivering the drugs into our communities, making it easy for any child that's on any of the platforms to contact a drug dealer using slang or emojis that their parents may not recognize and getting them delivered to their home the way it was delivered to our home. And either killing the children or, if not, then addicting them for life. So, what we have done is to try and sponsor legislation that will protect our children in any way we can think of. So, one method is a law named after our son, Sammy's Law, the Let Parents Protect Act. In Congress, it's House Resolution 5778, and it requires third party safety software on any platform with children, including gaming platforms and social media platforms.
And
And
that's
that would,
that's huge to include both gaming and social media.
yes, because the gaming platforms are grooming havens for criminals. They may play with your children for 2 months before they set the hook, and they're using avatars. You can't see their faces,
Mhm.
and the kid thinks it's their best friend. They've known them every day, and it turns out to be a 45-year-old pedophile or a drug dealer. So, yes, gaming platforms like Discord are hugely dangerous. And the platforms with our children do not allow for the integration of third party safety software. For instance, Discord, Snapchat, TikTok, and the instant messaging platforms of Meta, Instagram, and Facebook, none of them allow for
Mhm.
third party safety software. So Sammy's Law would just require that they open a link or an API to this industry, and then parents could download an app that would give them a warning if something dangerous or illegal happened on their devices, the devices that they buy and they own and they give to their children.
Right.
So we're not editing speech. We're not flying in the face of the First Amendment. We are not trying to sue anybody. So it doesn't fly in the face of Section 230C of the Communications Decency Act, which prevents Americans from suing these platforms for the harm that they do because they're treated like a blackboard under a
Mhm.
law that was created in the 1990s that where you can't sue a blackboard for what someone writes on it.
Mhm.
So that's the way they're treating these platforms. But now, because of the dangerous algorithms and the way they use our children's data, they are driving harm to the kids. So,
Yes.
third party safety software like Bark, your viewers can go to bark.us. That's their website. They have this software, they have
And
a safe phone, they have a safe watch.
Titania
Um,
Jordan has done a previous episode with us in season 11. So I invite people to listen to that episode as well.
Bright Canary is out there. Um, for whatever it's worth, these software work better on Android than on Apple. So if you're about to buy a phone for your kid, make it an Android and
Hmm.
download the third-party safety software. It has, according to the FBI, stopped 17 school shootings. It has called police over 1,000 times when there was imminent harm, and given out millions of warnings to parents on the platforms that do allow it to be integrated.
Hmm.
And we believe it's going to pass in the next Congress. We have great support from the Speaker of the House, the Majority Leader, the incoming uh, Republicans seem to be interested in this. They like
Hmm.
a private market solution that doesn't fly in the face of all the protections and that doesn't require the social media platforms to change the way they do business per se. They can
Mm.
keep doing whatever they want to do with adults. They can keep sending out the bad messages, but parents will know what's happening and we can parent again online.
As long as
We
parents are informed. That's the catch there, is so many parents don't even. I have talked to parents who have these third-party apps, and they still were there was a lot of confusion on the fact that social media platforms, like, you're not going to be covered under those certain platforms. And
That's
I
right.
I think that people just think oh, I did the purchase, I did the thing, check the box, and I'm done. But there's a few more steps that need to be taken there.
That's right. Snapchat was invented uh, to hide these things because
Mm-hmm.
the snaps disappear. It happened when Evan Spiegel and a couple of friends were at Stanford University, and one of them sent a in flagrante picture to a girl, and he said, "Oh, I wish I could have that one back." And that gave birth to what they said was $1 million idea. And they created basically a sexting app called Peekaboo.
Mm-hmm.
And after about a year, they realized that most of the users were teenagers. And so they renamed it Snapchat. And that is the app that 75% of American kids are walking around with in their pocket now. Basically, a sexting app designed to do nefarious things, and it's become the dark web for kids.
Yes, yes. No, and it's interesting because when my kids were kind of coming of age into that zone of when do we allow them to get social media, etc., there was kind of a consensus originally around Snapchat that people thought it was better, that it was like, oh, it just goes away. So whatever they said, there was a false sense of, oh, it doesn't matter what gets said, because they viewed it as a safer alternative, is what I can
That's
say, which could not be further from the truth.
So there are a couple of laws that were just passed and signed in California that I want to mention. The
Yes.
first is SB 976, which forbids social media from contacting our children while they're at school or at night from midnight to 6 a.m. and prevents any dangerous algorithms or addictive algorithms from being delivered to a minor. And so that's just a fabulous law. The governor recently signed it. And within weeks, the social media and internet companies lobbying group NetChoice challenged it in court. And they will tie it up for at least 2 years fighting the fight around the First Amendment in Section
And
230C.
they have unlimited funds to do this
Yes, they
with.
they sure do. They have unlimited funds. The other law that was recently passed, and I testified in Sacramento using Sammy's story because, as I mentioned, Snapchat didn't help the police, is SB 918, and that's been signed and I believe won't be challenged. And it mandates that social media platforms keep a line open for the police, manned by a person, so that any emergencies or inquiries will actually be handled by the platforms. And it also requires that all valid subpoenas be returned within 72 hours.
Mm.
And these platforms have been sitting on parents' subpoenas even after they went to court. They did everything they had to. They lost a child via that platform. They, for months, haven't been returning them, kick them back for missing a middle initial, whatever excuse they can find. And the reason this is happening is because they report the number of users that they have on their platform to Wall Street every 3 months. And if that number goes down, their stock price gets hit. So they're worried about the number of users, not the health of their users. And
Yeah.
Snapchat, for instance, Snap Inc., hasn't earned any money ever. The only income they've ever reported is from interest income on the money that Wall Street gives them for their stock. And so if they take a hit on the number of users, it's a catastrophe because
Oh,
they're not growing, they're not making money. So
okay.
why would you invest?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. And when you boil it down to that economic level, it becomes very clear why they behave the way they do. Of
additionally, they have a cadre of lobbyists. Google has one
mhm,
lobbyist for every eight Congress people, and massive donations. In the past 3 years, the companies have given out $90 million in donations to Congress, and they fight legislation like Sammy's Law tooth and nail. And we are
mhm.
up against a behemoth. And the reason they have all this money is because we can't sue them. The
Yeah,
American way is if you harm someone, they can take you to court and make you pay, and then you won't do it again because you don't want to be back in court with the next family.
right.
And Section 230C is standing in our way, and it needs to be
Yes.
changed.
Yes, I could not agree more. It's an antiquated law from a time when people did not have the tools that they have now to connect with the world. And it's infuriating to me that it still holds up. And I feel like the other reason why you certainly know way more about this than I do, but I feel like the other reason why they fight tooth and nail not to get anything passed is because they do not want a case to set a precedent on anything because it's the chink in the armor that will happen. But I think we have to keep chinking the
Well, I
armor.
agree. And Senator Kennedy says the new definition of a recession is when Google starts laying off lobbyists. Um, I think the answer is going to be in the lawsuits,
Mm-hmm.
like our lawsuit. You
Mm-hmm.
know, once parents are allowed to sue these platforms, they're going to have to clean it up. And
Mm-hmm.
we're getting close. The Third Circuit Court in Pennsylvania just ruled that the algorithms and the artificial intelligence that drive those algorithms are not human speech and therefore not subject to First Amendment protections.
Oh, I did not know that. I
Yes, and
love hearing that.
that's a federal appeals court, and this will undoubtedly be referred to the Supreme Court, and they can either let the ruling stand and not hear the case, or hear it and support the ruling. And once that happens, that will open the door to lawsuits all over the country.
I'm so grateful to hear about forward movement because it's very easy to swirl down the dark rabbit hole of how do we even begin to tackle this. And our messaging at Healthy Screen Habits always wants to be one of help. And I think help starts with hope. And so when you're giving some of those facts, it's like, okay, so that's our nugget of hope. And I think the help component from you also comes from your organization, Parent Collective. And I had a little bit of a tricky time finding the website until I realized it was parentcollective.org. And I will definitely link that in the show notes as well as SB 976, SB 918, and Sammy's Law. All will be in the show notes. But Can we talk a little bit about Parent Collective and what you guys do and who you're serving?
Sure. So we're serving a community of parents and kids who are in danger. We're doing it through education, through media like your podcast, through creating a film. We're creating a documentary, and so we're doing everything we can to warn parents, to challenge the social media platforms that are the delivery mechanisms for these drugs, speaking to police, working with children, delinquent children I speak to. And my wife, Dr. Laura Berman, is a therapist. And after we got grief therapy, she decided that that was something that there wasn't enough of out there available and took it on to her practice. And so she holds grieving mama meetups around the country and here in California once a month in Hermosa Beach, for instance. Just did one in Chicago, 30 to 50 moms who lost a child to online harm or fentanyl poisoning. And she brings in other clinicians and they do grief yoga and they tell their stories and they get therapy and they get community and they leave feeling much better.
I've heard you refer to yourselves as accidental activists, which tends to be the place that a lot of people within this arena are. You guys are such a testament to the power of taking care of your mental health and your physical health and being able to continue living through horrible tragedy and through, I mean, I feel like you guys are really just, I don't know, inspirational, which I hate that. I don't like the phrase inspirational because nobody who is actually inspiring usually has intended to be there. So, but but thank you for all that you guys are doing.
Well, thank you for saying so. We're part of a group of parents around the country who are fighting this fight as well in
Mm-hmm.
all the states of the union. And one of our roles in Parent Collective is to bring everyone together and
Mm-hmm.
to make our fight bigger. With
Right, because we're
fentanyl
better
po
together. Yeah.
That's right. With fentanyl poisoning alone, we're creating 200,000 new parents every year who have
Yeah.
lost somebody, and we're becoming a political force. Uh,
Yes.
we go to hearings in Congress. We were there when the five CEOs of social media platforms testified in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
saw the senators walking out, and I put Sammy's picture up as high as I could reach.
Yeah.
And the fella next to me put his son's picture up, and the
Yeah.
woman next to him put her son's picture up. And then 70 other parents put their picture up. And as the senators filed out, they had to see what was happening in the country. And then
Yes.
the CEOs of the platforms came out and they saw all the death that their platforms had created. And you could hear a pin drop in the Senate hearing room. And the sergeant at arms made us put down the pictures and they gavelled the hearing to order. And then later on, Senator Hawley uh, made Mark Zuckerberg stand up and apologize to us,
Right.
which he didn't do a very good job
I
of,
do
by the
not.
way.
Yes, I agree completely. I agree completely. I'm very familiar with the footage, and I was less than impressed with Mr. Zuckerberg's response with
And
that.
Senator Hawley said, put the pictures back up. And he had to look at all of the dead children that his platform had caused and other platforms had caused
Yeah.
and
And he used the
brag
phrase, there's blood on your hands. And
and bragged about his platform leading an industry leading effort to make sure no one had to go through what we've been through. And the truth is, people are dying every single hour on his platform.
yes, yes. Okay. Well, we have to take another short break, but when we come back, I'm going to ask Sam Chapman for his healthy screen habit.
At what age should I give my child a smartphone? How much screen time should I allow each day? What are the best filters to use on my family's devices? Sound familiar? These questions and more are answered at the Healthy Screen Habits website. We've curated the best articles, books, videos, and many other resources to help you figure out how you want to use technology in your life. Click on the Awareness section to learn about the issues and dangers surrounding screen use. Then click on the Tools page to download printables you can use with your family today, including the Healthy Screen Habits Family Technology Plan. Visit our website at www.healthyscreenhabits.org for the resources and tools you need to get started.
I'm speaking with Sam Chapman, the dad of Sammy Chapman, who is forever 16 after obtaining a fentanyl-laced pill on Snapchat. On every episode of the Healthy Screen Habits podcast, I ask each guest for a healthy screen habit, and this is going to be a tip or takeaway that listeners can put into practice in their own home. Do you have one for me today?
I do, until we're able to clean up the platforms and get third-party safety software out there. The best we can do is get the username and passwords for all of our children's devices and for the software that they use. Make it a quid pro quo for keeping the devices or for giving them the devices. We still own them, we still pay for them, and we are the parents. And that
Yes.
way, if something goes wrong, you can go on the platforms. You can ask their friends what happened. You can, if your kid doesn't show up at 1 a.m, you can find out where the party is. And that'll work on some platforms. On Snapchat, where the snaps disappear, it won't work as well, but you can still network. And that's about the most protection that we can offer the kids right now.
Right now, until we get those other bills and Sammy's Law passed. As always, you can find a complete transcript of this show, as well as a link to Parent Collective Inc. website and the bills we discussed by visiting the show notes for this episode. You do this by going to healthyscreenhabits.org, click the podcast tab, and scroll to find this episode. Sam, thank you so much for being here, for sharing Sammy with us, and for advocating for safer online spaces for all of our kids.
Thank you for having me.
For more information, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Healthy Screen Habits. Make sure to visit our website, healthyscreenhabits.org, where you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or via RSS, so you'll never miss an episode. It's free, it's fun, and you get a healthy new screen habit each week. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate you giving us a quick rating. It really does help other people find us and spread the word of healthy screen habits. Or if you'd simply like to tell a friend, we'd love that too. I so appreciate you spending your time with me this week, and I look forward to learning more healthy habits together.